Okay, we now welcome on to the show Senator Amanda Stoker. This is exciting, so welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you.
All right, Amanda, you're one of the rising political stars in the Liberal Party, me and Pete would say, and we loved your article in The Australian last week, and we wanted to talk to you about that. So how did your background spark your decision to become a Liberal Party member?
Yeah, look, I was a kid during the recession we had to have, right? And so my first kind of political memory was of sitting on the lino floor in a kitchen while my mum was on the phone to the bank kind of asking for more time because mum and dad were running a plumbing business from home and interest rates were 18% and they were absolutely struggling with it. They were trying to keep it all going and, they worked so hard. And I just remember thinking at the time, it isn't right for people who are totally responsible, they're backing themselves into business, they're trying to employ other people and contribute, are finding it this hard. And I didn't understand why that was as a kid. I was only about 6, right? And as I got older, I saw them doing exactly the same thing under the Howard government, and they really prospered. And I had to know why that was happening. And that led me to read, that led me to try and understand the different political philosophical traditions, and it made me decide that a small government, free market, high freedom way of doing things helps everybody reach their potential.
Right. Now, one of the things you said in your article, Amanda, is that it's the left, not the right, that reduces people to economic units trying to accrue material wealth. That's exactly right. Why does everyone, or not everyone, but why do a lot of people think the opposite is true?
It's a combination of things, I think. It's a concept that I first started thinking about after having read Barry Goldwater, who was, the US presidential candidate all those years ago that never quite got there. But he wrote this great book called The Conscience of a Conservative, where he explains this stuff. And it's really interesting that the left seem to be understood by many people to have this monopoly on compassion and kindness when they're very good at spending other people's money. That's true, but ultimately they don't see people as more than one-dimensional. In their socialist desire to reduce everybody to classes and demand that they economically progress into another class, and that they're the ones reducing people in all their complexity down to economic units and nothing more. What's exciting about looking at the world as a liberal is that you see both an economic and a spiritual creature. The individuality and the creativity of and the unique gifts of every person really matter. That's why we believe in small government, because one size fits all does not work to give us all our best version of a great life. We've got to do it differently. That's how we make the best of our society. What's really cool, I guess, about history is that it shows all the big advances we've made have been an unleashing of the unique talents of uncommon people rather than trying to treat us all as one size fits.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, even if you accept, even if you just picture it as people as purely economic things, it's clearly the government needs to be limited. Like, all of history shows this, like poverty shows this. It's only when government gets out of the way that people can really start improving their lives.
Yeah, because governments don't do things efficiently. They don't understand the personal and the moral and the human considerations that drive us day to day. And when they try, they inevitably fail. It's a bit like when, those on the left talk about equality. What they mean is equality of outcome. We like equality as liberals, but we like equality of opportunity, because when you try and deliver equality of outcome, it can't be done, right? But even if you could, it would be so disappointing. It'd just be the lowest common denominator. And that doesn't benefit anybody. It's really fascinating. But you asked why people labour under this misconception. And I think part of it is there has been a bit of a timidity on our side of politics in the last decade or so, in which people have felt a little bit afraid to go there when it comes to matters sort of human and social and spiritual. They don't want to be called judgmental by going into discussions about kind of the personal or the moral, and that's kind of meant that we've abdicated parts of the conversation in a way that we need to remedy.
Another topic we want to talk to you about is a big debate in Australia right now about the role of government in defending freedom of religion. Now, obviously, like with Israel Folau getting all the attention, it's like, what is the government's response going to be? So what is the role of the government in defending freedom of religion for Australians?
Look, in a perfect world, the way government should go about this, I think, is to take a big step back and say, what's gone wrong here? What's gone wrong is that we've brought in a whole bunch of discrimination acts that too much fetter people's ability to think and to express and to manifest their religious beliefs. So the right thing to do, as I see it, is to scale back or indeed remove entirely those acts, because they weren't truly needed in any event. I'm not saying the world was perfect and no one was ever horrible to one another. There were incidences, of course, but the common law had a way of dealing with this. You couldn't incite someone to violence, for instance, on any basis, let alone a discriminatory one, pursuant to the common law. And nevertheless, we brought these discrimination acts in and they've changed the landscape quite a lot. So while I'd like to see us get rid of those laws, politics is the art of the possible. And so what the government is doing is, instead of getting rid of the laws that are making this bad, they are instead trying to level the playing field by providing some protections for people who are of faith, so that they feel able to speak and to manifest their belief.
I'm glad you mentioned in a perfect world you rip out all those discrimination laws, Amanda, because one of the things I think a lot of our listeners are concerned about is the idea that a religious discrimination bill enforces the idea that freedom of speech or freedom of religion is a gift from a government. It is a gift from the government rather than a natural right.
It's not. Yeah.
Terrific. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but you're absolutely right. These rights are not things that governments give us at their whim or take away. They are things that are inherent to who we are. And if you're a person of faith, that means they are a natural right, inherent in your very being as a gift from God. If you're not a religious person, it means it's core to who you are as a human. Governments can't take it away with a stroke of a pen. And so there needs to be a lot more understanding in our political conversations and more broadly about, I think, natural rights and some of the harm that's been done by so many people looking at rights through the framework of international human rights law rather than through the framework of natural rights.
Amanda, you've been so generous with your time, but one thing we also wanted to get you on just before you were left for a committee meeting, I think it was.
She's chairing as well.
That you're chairing is higher education. Now, we know you're doing a whole lot of awesome work in the subject of higher education and freedom of speech at uni, so it's going to suck that this is going to be a 25 words or less answer, but how do we get freedom of speech back at Australian universities?
Look, we need to make sure that the people who are running our universities understand the absolute non-negotiable necessity of intellectual freedom. And if they don't understand it and they don't enforce that as a cultural discipline in their institutions, then we need to be prepared to, I think, pull the levers of government that say you don't get taxpayer money if you aren't prepared to adhere to these fundamental principles. Because if you don't safeguard free speech and intellectual freedom, a university is not fulfilling its public purpose. It is not going to be a proper custodian of true Australian culture. It is not going to be a place where people can genuinely toss around ideas or become robust in their ability to engage. And it's not going to become a place where new ideas can get tested and challenged if people don't feel like they're able to speak.
Well, that's very important. Senator Amanda Stoker, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. Stay up.
Cheers. Bye.